is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Top of the key, triple. Richie Saunders, fourth three-pointer of the night. Massive make.
Every Monday night, we break down the Cougars' last game and look ahead to next week. Cougar Nation, brought to you by Central Bank. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Good evening, Cougar Nation. Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte with you. BYU basketball, man, what a close to this season. The Cougars are on an 8-game winning streak, and we want to hear from you, Cougar Nation. 801-575-8255. Again, that's 801-575-8255. The phone lines are going to be open over the next hour, so you can weigh in and share your thoughts on this BYU basketball team, or weigh in on the question of the day. What do you think BYU's mindset should be for the Big 12 tournament? And Matt, these are good times for BYU basketball, especially when you're on a long win streak, but then you get a big win over rival Utah.
They start 1-3 in conference play. Who would have guessed they'd be 17th in the country on an 8-game winning streak with road wins at Arizona, Iowa State. Things have changed quickly, and this is the exact type of thing I think every team in the country wants to do, Mitch. Play their best basketball in March, and that's what BYU is doing.
BYU takes down Utah 85-74 to close out the regular season. Let's dive into the takeaways.
Cougar Nation, takeaways. Mitch and Matt analyze BYU's last week of play and what it means for the next week.
I'll start things off, Mitch. My first takeaway is that this BYU team won a game that I didn't think they were capable of winning a month ago. There were a couple very interesting stats that favored Utah, and yet Utah never had a lead in the second half, and they never really threatened to win this game after BYU got a double-digit lead with about 17 minutes left to go in the second half. The Utes out-rebounded BYU by 19, and they were plus 12 from the three-point line. And if you would have told me that before the game had started, I would have said there's no way BYU wins this game. Because the last two games BYU had lost, they were out-rebounded by 15. And yet this team has evolved. They can win in so many different ways. The points off turnovers favored BYU. Points in the paint, plus 18 for BYU. Bench points, it was pretty equal, but still plus 2 BYU. It's incredible to me that this team has evolved in such a manner that they can win. In a game where you don't rebound well, we can still win. In a game where we shoot 10% below our season average from three, and we get outscored from that part of the game, we can still win that game too. It's just really impressive. They were able to overcome those things that did not go their way.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive for BYU, especially when you consider, where they were against Utah back on January 18th. It's a little bit of a snapshot of how much the team has evolved over these, close to 2 months since BYU lost in the Huntsman Center back in January. I think my first takeaway is Dawson Baker led BYU in scoring. There were 5 guys on BYU that reached double figures on senior night against the Utes, but Dawson Baker off the bench, redshirt junior, 15 points, 4 of 7 from the field. Most notably, I think 3 of 5 from three-point range. It was his first double-digit scoring effort since January 25th, and Coach Kevin Young highlighted Dawson as a guy that he's playing well and maybe deserves more minutes.
We feel like we have a lot of depth in our locker room, so on a given night, we can have different guys step up and lead us in the scoring. Dawson's a guy who probably deserves more minutes, and the one thing that makes me at least feel better knowing that he does deserve more minutes is when he comes in, I try to go to him. I try to call his number as much as I can because he's a guy that can deliver.
What a luxury for Kevin Young, Matt, to have almost every guy he can make the case and say he probably deserves more minutes. It's a nice spot BYU's in right now.
That leads me to my second takeaway, Mitch, which is kind of along the same lines as you. I'm going to go with Mihailo Boskovic. Played 17 minutes, had 11 points, made 4 of his free throws. I thought he was really impactful on both ends of the floor. Kind of cool, too, that his parents were in town to watch the basketball game, but he has really come on along with Trey Stewart and Dawson Baker, who you noted. The bench production is a real weapon for this team. And even guys of late who have played well, like Dallin Hall, he only had 5 points. He played 24 minutes, 3 assists. Yeah, the scoring wasn't there like it was against Iowa State, but I still felt his impact. And I thought his 3 before the end of the first half was critical. And I also love, too, Mitch, what Kevin Young said about that situation and that late game clock management?
Got to give Chris Burgess a lot of credit for just he's kind of in charge of our late clock management in those 2-for-1 situations. So if you really studied that whole sequence, that was a very good job of Burge having me dialed in on when to shoot, when to call the timeout, what kind of play to draw up. Then we fouled them on purpose so we could then get the last shot. I mean, it was a masterclass by him in having me ready, which I rely on my staff to do that type of stuff. So that was just great all around.
Good stuff from Kevin Young and Chris Burgess, who's been on both sides of this rivalry, having an impact. And the bench play was significant, Mitch. It was between Boscovich and Baker, who you noted, Mitch. I thought they kept the game close in a period where in that first half, Utah really could have surged to maybe a double-digit lead, but Baker and Boscovich were key.
That they were, and BYU closes out the regular season on an 8-game winning streak. And I think my second takeaway from this is just BYU continues to be this pick-your-poison team. It's been kind of a theme in recent weeks from Kevin Young, but they truly can beat you in a variety of ways. It hasn't been a set blueprint every single game how BYU is winning. And I think that's why there's so much confidence in Cougar Nation right now about this team. They can win the high-scoring, fast-paced, high-tempo game like they did at Arizona. They can win a game at Iowa State where everything's going sideways offensively for the first 5 minutes. They have almost 30 turnovers and still win. They win a game against Utah, slow start, rivalry, high emotion, senior night, all the cliches, and they still come away with a victory, a sound victory where they win by 11 points. It's just there's not a set blueprint on how to beat this BYU team, and that's a testament to the way that they've constructed the roster where, again, it was the perfect blend of high-end potential NBA prospects, veteran guys that knew BYU and were ready to take a big step forward under Kevin Young, and then guys that were willing to just embrace their roles. And it's worked out outstanding for BYU to the point where now they feel like they can go toe-to-toe with anyone in college basketball, and it's pretty exciting to see.
I love that point on the roles, too, because with the depth being so deep, you'd imagine there might be a couple guys that want more playing time, and I'm sure that they do, but they're all about winning. And I love what Kevin Young said today about how this team, regardless of the role, they stay engaged.
I think it speaks to the character of the guys we have in our locker room and in our program. I think it also speaks to the relationships that our assistant coaches have with our players, keeping the guys in the boat, rowing in the same direction, always being there to just work with them and keep them focused on what they can do to continue to get better. And then, our guys just, they want to win, and I think when you're able to win, like we have, I think it's hard to not be invested because at the end of the day, I think every guy that's a high-level competitor wants to win.
And you're seeing that from this BYU team. All of these guys are really letting their individual accolades go out the door to, win games. Even Kevin Young today talked about the all Big 12 honors and how there could have been more guys that could have received accolades beyond just simply Richie Saunders and Yegor Demon. But, they've let that go, check it out at the door in an effort to win something big. And this BYU team, I think they can match up with nearly anyone in college basketball. Yeah, there's that, you wonder about how they would fare a second go-around against Houston, and they might have that opportunity coming up this week in Kansas City, but there's just a lot to like with this BYU team, and it's really fun to see because there was so much buzz and hype in the summertime to the likes of which we had never seen for a BYU basketball team, and they're living up to it, and there's a lot of buzz and momentum going into the postseason, and I think that's all you can ask for if you're in Cougar Nation.
I love that they are in the Big 12 this time around because you mentioned Houston. They might get a rematch with Iowa State Thursday morning. I like that there's been a variety of teams that they've played. I think that will prepare them well for the tournament. Houston is super physical. I think they're a Final Four team. They're so deep. They're so good. Iowa State's really physical as well, and BYU won that game. We'll have to see if there is a rematch, how that pans out. But they've had other games, like the Arizona game, where it's a shootout. And you just got to keep getting buckets, and they found ways to win that game. So I love the possibilities of this team in the NCAA tournament for a variety of factors. But one of those is what you noted, Mitch, where man, this team just wins in a variety of ways, and it's very different than last year's team. I think this is a season, BYU fans, where enjoy the expectations. I think last year there was a fair amount of trepidation when it came to the tournament, and that proved to be true for BYU fans because they got outed early. But this team feels different to me. I think you can buy into the hype, buy into the expectations, get on the train and enjoy the ride because this team is playing great basketball, and they're a lot of fun to watch.
That they are, and we're going to be talking with one of those guys that's part of this team that's having a lot of success right now, Yegor Demon, Big 12 all-freshman pick. He's going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour, so stay tuned for that. We'll also be taking your phone calls, 801-575-8255. Share your takes on this BYU basketball team, and maybe what should their mindset be going into Kansas City. They leave tomorrow for the Big 12 tournament. Weigh in on that. Cougar Nation sponsored by Central Bank, serving Utah County for over 133 years with trusted service, modern technology, and personalized care. Central Bank, proud sponsors of Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio. We're taking the break. We'll get to more of what's trending up and trending down in the world of BYU basketball.